Welcome again to the Brand Ambassador series. Today we're staying in the US and with High West. Troy, thanks for being here with us.
Absolutely, thank you.
Well, you got to tell us all about High West.
Sure, absolutely.
It's a great success.
Thank you.
It's quite young.
Yes, yeah.
Yet we can find some 21-year-old absolutely amazing whiskey.
It's magic.
So, yeah, tell us about that magic.
Sure. So, we have a little place in Park City, Utah. It's the world's only ski-in gastro distillery. So, we're right at the bottom of the Park City Mountain Resort. And when you ski down the last run, you either go back the lift and up the hill, or you come and have a drink at our place.
Oh, that's a fantastic excuse to just stop the skiing there.
Some people do, And so we do a couple things at High West. One, we have a distillery there, obviously, so we're distilling whiskeys and aging whiskeys.
Okay.
And we also work as independent blenders and bottlers.
Right.
So we buy whiskeys from a bunch of different distilleries and then blend them together to make them our own. And basically that allows us the time that we need to age our whiskeys, so we don't have to rush them to the market when they're too young.
Very good. So when is that, when did that start?
So we've been making whiskey up there since like '07, but it takes a lot of time to get the recipe right. Our new rye whiskey that we have today, it's taken us a long time to get the recipe correct and figure out how to work the still right and to get the recipe that we want. So, we have some stuff that's a couple years old right now, but just a little bit, but more to come.
Okay.
So it's a long process.
And then, of course, you're sourcing great whiskeys from here and there.
Yeah.
What's here and there?
So we have whiskey from a bunch of different distilleries. We have whiskey from our own distillery, obviously. We buy a bunch of whiskey from LDI, which is in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. We have whiskey from Four Roses. And we have whiskey from Barton Distillery in Bardstown, Kentucky. And then so we use those to make up our blends.
But who's making that blend? Because they're so popular.
Yeah, so that blend is David Perkins. He's our owner, yeah, and he comes up with all the blends. And it's a little bit of a group effort. We taste a bunch of different blends, and then everybody kind of says, oh, I like this one, or I like that one a little bit better. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to David and what he thinks is good. So, well,
he's got either a very good sense of what the market loves, or what a great whiskey is, and maybe both.
He has a great palate, yeah.
Because that Boo Rye and that Double Rye,
they're awesome.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you, thank you.
And quite courageous too, because putting a very young one and a much older one together, and there's no clash, it's just a beautiful marriage.
Yeah, it's interesting. You'd think that people would have thought about it before. For us, we think it makes the whiskeys more complex because you get the boldness of the young whiskeys, but the smoothness of the older whiskeys in it, and it works really well. So,
is it something that we only find with High West nowadays? Is it a brand new thing?
No. In Scotland, they do this all the time. People buy whiskeys from all kinds of distilleries and blend them together. We just don't, we don't really have the tradition or don't talk about it as much in America as they do in Scotland. So, I guess we're a little unique for American distilleries.
People say that you're pioneers in that distilling renaissance in the U.S.
Sure.
How do you locate High West within that movement of micro distillery craze?
That's a great question. I think that we've taken a slightly different path than a lot of micro distilleries. It's a tough business. You make whiskey and then you have to wait, well, in our case, 4 some years before you can actually sell anything. So making that work as a business is very, very difficult. And there are a number of ways that distilleries have tried to overcome those obstacles. First being vodka. A lot of vodkas or gins or some sort of clear spirit basically allows you to get a little bit of cash flow to pay for distilling the whiskeys that aren't going to be ready for 4 years. Other ways, a lot of micro distilleries do small barrels, or they use wood chips, or some sort of technique to try and age the whiskey faster so they can get it to market. That's not our particular style. We don't care for it as much.
So what kind of barrels are you using then?
We use bigger barrels.
Okay.
We have like 52-gallon barrels.
Oh,
we have
standard size barrels?
Yeah, standard size barrels.
Standard white oak,
Yep.
like bourbon style?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, we have some char number 2, some char number 4, and that's what we're aging our stuff in.
Is there already something that you're not telling me? Is there some sort of trials on European oak that goes on right now?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
I'm just trying.
I know. I understand.
And
yes.
so when it comes to the mash bill, okay, so you're making that rye. What about other grains? Are you using other grains? Do you make a traditional bourbon that will be released in a few years?
Not a bourbon. We do. So we have our oat whiskey, right? We have our silver oat whiskey, and we're aging that. So we'll have that, an aged oat whiskey in the future, which will be really nice. Mash bill on that is 85% oat, and then 15% malted barley.
All right.
So it's really cool, really nice. And then we also we're doing malt whiskey.
You're doing malt whiskey?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, that'll be next year as a silver whiskey, and then in the future as an aged. It's really good. It's really good.
Well, so then if you're making malt whiskey, and you're talking about malted barley, where are you getting the barley from?
Good question. It's all American barley, I believe.
Okay.
The particular sources I'm not quite sure about.
But you're getting in the U.S.?
Yeah.
All right. And so far, no corn?
No corn yet, but in the future maybe.
Okay.
You know?
Why oat? It's a bit special.
Yeah, so, in the beginning, David experimented with all sorts of grains, sort of like Koval from Chicago, right? They have millet and spelt, all kinds of stuff. And, we have a little pilot still that we use for experiments. And, as far as silver whiskeys go, oat is really nice. Oats have like a natural vanilla essence to them that people really like. They're softer, they're easier. I think the white whiskey market is something that is harsh for a lot of people. Yeah. A lot of people taste unaged whiskeys and they say, "Oh, it burns
bold,
and it's yeah." And so for us, we wanted to go with oat because it's a little softer, a little bit easier for the general drinking public, and it also makes really good cocktails.
And is it something that is grown around over there in
so
Utah?
So our oats come from Alberta, Canada. We do have some oats in Utah, but they weren't as good as the oats from Canada. So given the choice between local and better, we always pick better.
Why not?
So we have a German still. It's super fancy. It's a 250-gallon still, and it's a pot still, but it has 2 columns.
All right.
So we can use the columns or not use the columns. I'm sure you're familiar with stuff like that. So, for things like vodka, all the columns.
You use the columns.
Oat whiskey, some of the columns, and our rye whiskey, none of the columns.
Okay.
So it really depends on what we're making, and it depends on how we use the still.
Okay. So you're using it either as a pot still or more of a column kind of.
Yeah, sort of. So not a continuous still, obviously. So it's one batch through, but it goes through the columns for some of the things.
All right. Now, when you say that it's so gorgeous there, because it's you. Sorry, you have to be here in New York.
Yeah, I like it here.
Why Utah? Is it any easier in Utah to build a distillery? Are the laws any different than anywhere else?
Well, the first thing that I've learned since traveling around, every state has crazy laws, right? And Utah is no different, and maybe they're crazier than most. But why Utah? Well, it's actually a really easy answer. David wanted to raise his family in Utah, and he wanted to make whiskey, so we said, well, I'll make whiskey in Utah.
Why not?
Yeah, so it's been fun because whatever challenges you have with the state regulations, you kind of get to overcome that on the flip side when you get to take a whiskey to somebody and say, oh, we have whiskey made in Utah, and people always do a double take. Aren't those Mormons out there? So it's it gives us a fun story to tell at the same time.
Right. Is there something that's specific when it comes to the water, when it comes to the weather? Is there?
So we have the water in Park City is really good because it's really hard, has a lot of minerals in it.
Okay.
And minerals give you body, and a little bit of flavor, right? I mean, that's why people drink mineral water, right?
I know you've got a vodka.
Mm-hmm.
I had not seen it before. Is it something brand new, or how long has it been around?
It's newer to New York.
Okay.
But has been one of our staples from the beginning.
All right.
But it's made from oats, so it's pretty unique. Not a lot of oat vodka. And listen, I mean, we're not vodka people, right? We're whiskey people. But we tried to.
It helps.
Yeah, but we tried to make a vodka that we thought whiskey people might like. So it's meant to be full in the mouth, very creamy, kind of like vanilla.
Okay.
So.
All right. And then you've got 2 clear spirits here. What are we talking about?
So the first one is the oat whiskey, and so actually the oat whiskey and the oat vodka start their lives as the same oat beer, and it's just a different distillation process.
So you don't go as high in proof when you want to make a silver whiskey out of that oat, and higher in proof when you want to make it the vodka. Okay.
Exactly.
And what's the other one then?
So the other one is brand new. We call it OMG Rye, and so it's a rye whiskey, 100% rye. 20% of that is malted, and back in the day, OMG had a much different meaning than it does today. So it stands for Old Monongahela Rye, which is the western Pennsylvania area where the rye whiskey really took off before Prohibition. And so we wanted to use a recipe that started there, and we thought we would honor it with the name.
Well, what makes it Old Monongahela style?
So it's 100% rye, and that was a recipe that David found and wanted to try and duplicate it, and it took a long time to get it right. But
wait a minute, if it's 100% rye, then how do you get the malting process, the conversion, the enzymes going?
So 20% of the rye is malted.
All right.
And then that helps get the enzyme to get it going.
Okay, very good. Well, I think we should taste it.
We should taste it, right?
We should taste it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You always have fantastic, crazy names for those whiskeys.
Yeah, we some of them are crazy and some of them are obvious, but
some of them just make sense, like that Bourye.
We're really clever.
I guess
bourbon and rye, you know.
It's easy. Bourye.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
So this is kind of the polar opposite of the silver oat. That the silver oat is soft, delicate, easily mixable. OMG is much bigger, bolder, more complex, kind of chewy.
It smells big and yet quite. It smells creamy. It smells pleasant.
Thank you. Yeah, we don't do any chill filtering or carbon treatment or anything, so we leave all the oils in. And for us, that's very important to keep the oils because they're soft on your tongue. They give it kind of a fatty quality.
Right.
Extends the finish.
For white whiskey, it's quite fragrant. There's nothing harsh to it.
Right.
It doesn't hurt.
And it's 98.6 proof.
Really?
Yeah. It's your body temperature,
Oh, that's why. Well,
we could have done 100 proof, but then we wouldn't have anything to talk about.
That's why 11 in the morning we can take it that easy.
Right.
Or maybe